Joining us now is Dr. Tom Kirsch, who runs the Center for Refuge and Disaster Response at Baltimore's Johns Hopkins University. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24. First of all, the information minister in Nepal saying, on the one hand, this plea for aid, saying in 2 to 3 weeks, a serious reconstruction package needs to be developed where we'll need enormous help from the international community. It's hard to gauge what enormous help is after reading the column that you penned in the Washington Post entitled, "We Have Too Little Data to Know How to Help Countries Like Nepal Recover."
Yes, well, we have lots of data on the way we respond and how we respond. What we are missing, though, is kind of really objective measures of did we do the right thing or did we not do the right thing. We have lots of anecdotal reports. We have 30, 50 years of experience. We have systems that are in place that do quite well, but we still haven't reached that same level of kind of management information that is standard in most business practice areas.
You say, for instance, that you say we throw money at a country hoping to alleviate suffering, but unsure whether it will. So what do we do about Nepal?
Well, so we know how to relieve suffering. And again, I think it's a little overstated. What we don't know is how to optimally relieve suffering. And the question is, have we reached efficiencies with the money we spend that are reflected in other ways? What I really called it in this response was evidence-based disaster response. I think we need to focus more of our efforts using evidence and using objective measures to make sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time for the right people.
A week ago when we were discussing this, we had on the France 24 debate, a panelist say, well, Haiti's a case example of what not to do. But in Aceh, where after the tsunami, they did it right. Can you draw examples from other countries, or is it mixing apples with oranges?
Well, that's one of the points of my discussion, is it's very difficult for us to compare different things because we don't have these objective measures. We can't say, we can say we delivered 100,000 tons of food supplies or 55,000 tarps, but we can't say, did everyone who needed a tarp get a tarp? Did the right people who needed a nutritional assistance actually get that nutritional assistance? And so therefore, that's one of the difficulties that arise in these responses is although we have lots of process measures and lots of ways to look at what we've done, we don't have good objective data to say that this is the best possible thing that we could have done, or this method for delivering tarps is better than that method of delivering tarps. And that's the issue that we face, that I think we need to take our next leap now in management in these events into that area.
And is it doable? Is it possible when right now, if you've got free hands, you want to be helping with disaster relief, not with clipboard and counting numbers?
And that's exactly the problem. People are there, and I've been in these situations a number of times, and your task is to do what's best for the people out there, and everybody's working 16, 20 hours a day in order to do that, and the responses are remarkable. But I really believe that the only way we will ever achieve this is to spend that little bit of extra money and send out a team whose only job is to collect and analyze data and to look into the impacts and to better measure the data so that we can understand our responses.
All right, so what would you have done differently when it comes to Haiti?
Well, one of the difficulties in Haiti was just getting information. Generally, in a disaster response, we have a rapid assessment that we do right away in the beginning of a disaster that allows us to target our efforts and any work going forward. In Haiti, it took months to get that out because of the politics and because of the difficulty with that. And therefore, it was useless by the time it came out. We'd already been into the response for 4 or 5 months prior to this initial rapid assessment coming out. That has to be immediate. And that has to not only just be one assessment, but we need to continually assess, maybe weekly, to see if we're doing the right thing, to see if the right people are getting the right thing. And so there needs to be this ongoing process of collecting data and using to manage the disasters that really doesn't occur. We tend to do one big assessment and then maybe some little anecdotal stuff in between, but nothing formal like we would do in a business that sells, hamburgers.
All right. Right now, though, as we said at the outset, the Nepalese government issuing this plea for money. It says it's going to need a lot of it. What can be done? How do you run traffic so that you get the aid to the right place?
Well, so the biggest difficulty in Nepal is the logistical nightmare that the country is. It's a very mountainous country with very poor transportation infrastructure, and so that's what everybody is struggling with. Before the event even occurred, the roads were limited, and many of these villages and towns were accessible only by dirt paths or very small tracks, and so the logistical nightmare that is that country in general, which is one of the reasons it's so beautiful, has made this response very difficult and made reaching the rural areas difficult.
What's your reaction when you heard the information minister say, we don't need any more help in Kathmandu from rescuers, either go to the countryside or please go home?
Well, I think that's very true. From what I have a number of friends on the ground. I haven't been there yet, but there has been a big push to get out into the countryside. A number of the people I know are deployed in the countryside and have been there for days. But again, it's the logistical constraints of not enough trucks, not enough roads, not enough cars, not enough helicopters that make that difficult. But Kathmandu is clearly inundated with all kinds of people and supplies, and the push does have to be outside. It's just setting up those logistics.
And there's an example where you can hark back to what happened in Haiti?
Well, no, not so much, because Haiti wasn't such a logistical nightmare. The concentration of the damage was in a relatively small area, maybe a couple hundred square kilometers between Port-au-Prince and then the immediate area to the west of that. And here in Nepal, it's spread out over thousands of square kilometers to thousands of villages.
But in Haiti, you had aid organizations basically competing for attention from potential donors with an end result which was poor.
And that's one of the issues now with Nepal. Even after the Philippines, that was an issue. All the aid organizations went and set up their flag in the main city in the Philippines that was affected, and they didn't get out to the rural area because that's where CNN is, and that's where France 24 is, and that's where all the reporters are. And one of the things they want to do is raise money. And so that's always a big issue in every disaster, is pushing the supplies and equipment into the field to the places that aren't covered by the press, et cetera. And that's a repeated problem in Haiti, the Philippines, and now the same thing is happening in Nepal.
All right, and you're saying infrastructure is the big issue. Hence, we've heard this plea, every day it seems, this call for helicopters.
Yes, and the military. Immediately the Indian and Chinese military came in to help and provided some logistical support, and now other militaries from around the world are beginning to supply helicopters and other transportation methods, which is a really important step in this disaster and many disasters. Logistics tends to be the biggest issue in all large disasters for the first week or so in order to move the supplies to the right place.
Can this be an opportunity for Nepal to take from this disaster important steps to making that infrastructure right?
Well, I think it is. The initial appeal now by the UN is $415 million US. And that includes a lot of rebuilding and reconstruction issues. And so in the long run, the country really has to address these things. But again, it's one of the poorest countries in Asia. And so there's always constraints along those lines.
Tom, before I let you go, you were talking about the media coverage. Where you are in the United States, is it more about the tourists who are trekking, or is it about the local residents?
Well, the media cover here was altered because I live in Baltimore, where we had the riots that everyone heard about. And for a few days there, the riots in Baltimore, as small as they were, ended up pushing Nepal off. There has been, I feel, a disordinate amount of coverage for the trekkers and the mountain climbers compared to the people of Nepal. But still, the coverage has been fairly reasonable. They've gone out of their way, a lot of the news outlets, to get into the countryside and to emphasize the needs in those areas, too.